Beka Whaitiri.
Koe, o te ranga membo te wharenei, tēnā tātou katoa. Mr Speaker, I'm pleased to take a call on the new Plymouth District Council Waitara Lands Bill, and can I first too acknowledge Mayor Judd and fellow councillors who are here in the gallery. I also want to acknowledge the Minister of Māori Development, the Honourable Tūroro Flavell, particularly in his comment around supporting this bill going to Māori Affairs Select Committee. Now, Mr Speaker, I am a member of the Local Government Environment Select Committee. It is a very, very hard-working Select Committee, but I do want to acknowledge that this bill is addressing, although it's not a treaty settlement bill, it is still addressing very fundamental parts of every treaty settlement that we have in this House, which is land loss and in how land was taken. And if we look at the history in this case, I'm reminded of my own iwi of Rongo Whakaata, Gisborne, in the 1860s, when wars were declared on the locals in Gisborne, Turanganui Akiwa. In about 1865, when I was reading this particular history of Taranaki, I could see absolute resemblance to my own, Mr Chair, in Gisborne. 1 million acres were taken, and our land battle over there was called Waringahika. And in Taranaki, it was Peka Peka. And we've got to acknowledge and understand our own history, that those wars, because at that time there was a need to get more land for our settling communities. And I'm pretty sure that this House had a role in that. So let's fast forward. We're now in 2016. And of course, the land that is at question here resides with the Council. But we cannot overlook the fact of the history and how the Council came upon that land. So here we are debating. And I support the side. We are going to Select Committee and we want all the stakeholders, and they are numerous and they've been covered by previous speakers, sir, in this House. There are the leaseholders, there are the community of Waitara, there is the City Council, and of course there are the hapu of Waitara itself. And yes, we are dealing with the treaty settlement bills through a separate process, but they're actually indivisible because we are talking about whenua. And we're also talking about a history that happened to a particular people in this country, namely the hapu of Waitara. And by simply saying, well, we addressed your issues through the Te Atiawa settlement, this is a completely different matter, I think we're overlooking and I think we're being naive, Mr Speaker. I do want to acknowledge that when I read through the purpose of this bill, and I can see the concessions that have been made both by the Council and trying to set this joint committee up, which will have both Te Atiawa representatives and the Council, and I want to acknowledge that. But sir, I do believe that we have to actually allow the hapu, the community, the councillors and everybody else the right to have a say on what this actually means. And so that's why I wanted to make a contribution around looking forward and supporting both and acknowledging the member for New Plymouth, Jonathan Young, for bringing this bill to the House. And honestly, like everybody else has said, it's like a can of worms. And I want to acknowledge everybody's attempt to try and address it, from the Council to the local peoples, to the local member, to my own colleague here, Adrian Rudafia. It is a can of worms, but that is New Zealand's history. That is New Zealand's history. It's a can of worms. And so we cannot put those can of worms and think that we can deal it in a linear way. There is interrelated relationships and our history tied up in this bill that reflects a part of our history that led to a whole lot of hurt and sense of loss of identity. And if we, through this House, can enable the healing of that history by giving all those parties a fair shot, sir, then I think we've done our job as parliamentarians, but as legislators. And so, Sir, with that short contribution, I really do hope that the member takes on board the comments by the Minister of Māori Development and supports this bill to the Māori Affairs Select Committee, simply because of the tikanga around awhin and manaakeng, those hapu particularly, to come forth and share their story about the impact of this, as well as all the other vested stakeholders. Kia ora tātou.